Hello and welcome to Rallying the Forge. I am Solimer, and in this episode, we're going to be doing a Silver Bullets edition, talking about deck building and some my process, which hasn't changed a whole lot since the last video, which was 50 episodes ago, and some other things I've added to that process for me. And we'll look at a deck I made today, and we'll discuss what I went through with the thought process for it, and that'll probably be mostly it. We'll talk about my internal testing just a little bit. I know that doesn't interest a lot of people, but I will just touch on that as that plays into a role for all my decks. So I do want to, before I jump into that, we do not have a patch yet. No real updates or changes for the game currently. We're hoping for a patch this week, so the Scientist event will kick off hopefully this week. We'll see if that happens. The Scientist Creature Chaos event, that is. Alright, so let's jump to Chrome, and I use the collection manager religiously. Now, some people may like to use the client. That's fine. You can do that. You can build your decks through there if you like to. I like the collection manager. It's much more customizable, which is going to always be hard for the client to really mimic. So in the collection manager, I do modify my collection manager. I have some formulas I put in there. So I have 5 extra columns here where I can name a card, and I can filter for how many of those are in the deck list here. So it's a quick way to search, because if you filter by this and you do the filter by condition contains, text contains, you can only do one word. So you can use advanced search in the collection manager, but I don't really like it, and I don't feel it's extremely intuitive. So I don't use the advanced search. It's not a feature I enjoy using. So I have other columns here in the beginning. I have my own deck value rating system that I've got. I have my SolForgeFusionDecks.com overall scores. I also have, because I have an account over there, I have all the information for my decks pulled in, so I can look that information up on the same sheet. I also have, I moved the deck ELO over, as that's a metric I use to view decks. So it's also part of my deck value rating. Both of these scores factor into that. So building a deck, everyone has a different process. I really have a 3-step process, and your process may be longer depending on your experience or knowledge of the game, and that's okay. You know, I have a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience with the game, so my process is, you know, the most basic way to say it is it's a very simple process. So step 1 is find a deck that you find interesting or that you think is good, that you want to build around, that you want to make the centerpiece of whatever you're building. Or, it doesn't necessarily have to be the centerpiece. It could be something like, this would be a really good pair for something, but what? You want to find that deck that you want to build something with. So that's what I did, and we'll go through that after we get through the steps here. The second step is to then filter your collection down to maybe, for me, I try to get down to like half a dozen options that I could pair that half deck with. Depending on what you're trying to do with it, you could be trying to build something that's in one of the archetypes from Traveler's archetype ranking video, or you could be just trying to do a tribal style deck, or maybe it's just something random you're trying to put together, something that you've never seen that you're like, maybe this will be something that can work. Who knows? Whatever your objective is with the deck, you want to filter your collection down to roughly a half a dozen options. Sometimes for me, I have a large collection, so sometimes for me, I get it down to maybe 15 options, because when I filter down, I'll show here. So we have 7 options here. I might open all 7 decks and look at them, and sometimes you can be like, oh, I can eliminate these right off the bat because I know I'm not going to use them, or maybe all of them are like, oh, these are all fairly similar. Who knows which one I really want? Now I've got 7 options. That's still a lot. You want to cut that down more. I've got my filters here, so I can filter for specific cards if I'm trying to do a combo deck, or if there's a general idea of what I'm trying to do. Like if I'm doing life gain and drain, I might look for a Dark Heart Sorcerer. And then if I'm not feeling any of the Dark Heart Sorcerer decks, maybe I pivot out of that and I just look for Shamblers or spells that give me life and take opponent health or something. You know, different options like that. You know, I can filter all sorts of these things to try to find the right combinations for what I'm looking to do, depending how it feels with the deck that I'm trying to pair it with. Sometimes, like I said, I might have 15 options and I don't really know what to pick because they're all similar, or I've got like maybe 2 or 3 different options of styles that I could go with, and I've got 5 here, 5 here, 5 here. You got to find a way to filter that down. So that's the second part of it, is you're looking at the decks and then you got to eliminate decks. Sometimes that's really hard to do. I know it is for me. I have plenty of examples of where I've got, you know, 4 versions of a Rallying Captain deck. I've got 7 versions of a Darkforge Drain deck. I've got 5 versions of a Drix Apocamancer replacement style deck. Like, I get that process is hard. Some people are capable of just pairing 2 decks up and being like, yep, this is the one, this is the right pair. I'm not that guy. I get down to 6 decks, and I'm lucky if I can get it down to 3. Occasionally, you're looking at a deck, you're like, this is the pair. That's awesome when that happens. That doesn't happen all the time for me, or often. So that'll lead me to my internal testing, right? And then the step 3 is to, well, play and test your deck. So that's my deck building 3-step process. You know, you can watch my other video for how I build decks. The process hasn't changed. So I sort by the SolForgeFusionDecks.com rating, because 1, I have the information over here, and 2, I feel like it's the best system we have for rating decks, and I hope that he one day comes back and updates it more. I go through the deck, so I look at this one. I know this one's in a deck. I don't need to look at it. It's built with something. This one has some elo. It was with a pair, but that pair got retired. So it wasn't in a pair, but it's actually going to be paired with one of the deck I made today that we're going to look over in a little bit. So it's got a pair, right? This one has a pair. This one here does not. No elo means it has not been played against a player. Let's open this deck up. I would look at it. I'd say, oh, okay, this is a Mantis Forge Seal Darkforge Drain Cycle 2 deck. So something I've been doing on my sheet is I have a new tab that I add, a new sheet I added here, and it just says deck build list. So when I find a deck that I'm like this one, Mantis Forge Seal Darkforge Drain on Cycle 2, so you'd probably want some sort of spell slinger with it potentially. This does not have a lot of spells, but it's got a pretty good creature list. Just average, but it's not bad. So the deck looks okay. It's got 3 decent spells, usable spells. I would want to build something with this. I would not want to just get rid of it. So I've added it to my list here, and I put down my initial thoughts. I put down what account it's on, who I want to build it for, myself or my son. So I put pair with a perfect Circe, but no finisher or removal. Or I can pair it with Drix Apocamancer. Has Mantis Forge Seal, other options. So there's options there. Because the spell count is low, when I was looking at it initially, I thought instead just the Mantis Forge Seal for a perfect Circe deck, but we have no finisher. And so when you're looking at a deck, there's a lot of things you should take into consideration. I did do a video on what makes a deck good. Again, these videos I reference will have cards in the video, so you can click those if you want to view those videos as well. But I talk about what makes a deck good. So this deck, I noticed at the time, no finisher. The only finisher here, if I use Darkforge Drain, would be with Shardplate Delver or the Stegodon, because they have Breakthrough, and I can potentially pump them up and bust through my opponent's defense. So that would be the only finisher I have, but I would need to pair it with a Spellslinger. With a Perfect Circe, I would need a finisher from that half, or it would be more of a just a survival game, perhaps. But there's other things you could potentially pair this with too, but that was my notes that I took. So you can see I've only gotten down through like 40 decks here, 38 decks, but I went through and like this one has a deck, 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 no deck, no deck. You can see though, you can go through the decks. I can, you can make your own sheet. Just hit this plus button here, and then start pasting your decks. Put your comments there, your thoughts. The one's highlighted green I've already made into a deck. So that's my 3-step process for making a deck, and then my process for how do I determine if a deck is good. One, go watch the video on what makes a deck good, so you can better judge your own decks. Or you can use Discord and ask people there. They will give you sound advice for the most part. With that said, that's all I have in regards to deck building and my process for finding decks. Let's talk about the deck I made. So I paired up a Bumble deck with a Necrium half. So I didn't think I had any Bumble decks made, but I've had this one already paired with something, but it's okay because I got 2 pairings with it now. But I remembered I pulled this deck, and I remember it because it had double Darkforge loyalty, which is uncommon. So I was like, I need to make that Bumble deck with the free Darkforge loyalties. It had a Descendant Biologist, so I got the deck up, and I'm like, I have no idea what to pair this with. What am I going to build with this? So obviously, my biggest win condition is going to be Bumble, just bumbling over people, right? The Hive Guardian, pumping him up. The Biologist is nice and can be dangerous and annoying, but what I need to do is how do I activate Bumble, right? I need to fill lanes, so I need a lot of creature generation, typically. Utera's really good for that, but I'm playing Utera, and so I've only got what's in this deck for this purpose. So my thought was also the other thought was Bumble can get really big really fast. It helps if you have free spells to play, because I can just play them for free and still do other things. And so I was like, well, maybe I want to get my life down. So I found some Darkforged decks that I thought I could pair with it and have double Darkforged. But I was looking at it, and none of them really hit the mark for what I was looking for. And then the problem still was getting my health down for free spell plays is great, except that if Bumble's not flipped over to the Hive Guardian, what does it matter? So I was like, I need to change my approach. And so I was looking at my deck list, and that one second down here, the Necrium one, I was like, you know what? I don't know if I have an active deck with it currently, but I was like, this one has a ton of minion generation. It was great for an Apocalypse replacement type strategy. It just wasn't quite good enough in my internal testing to keep it. So I paired this with it because it's got 6 spells as well. Both decks have 6 spells, so I've got 12 spells. And every Necrium spell plays a minion, potentially. The Omnom is the only one that is a maybe. You got to kill a creature to get it. But they all play a creature in some fashion. So I was like, these would be great for that. I can fill lanes up. They work with the Biologist as well. The creatures, Indomitable Fiend, not really that important, but on Forge, they can't take him off the board, by damage. So he'll be there at least till your next turn. The Shambler can be really nice when you go wide with creatures, especially minions. They can get killed off quickly and easily. Shambler helps you get some life gain back and drain them. Stitcher allows you to reanimate things. So if they were to kill my Bumble, I could reanimate. Well, if they kill the Hive Guardian, I could reanimate Bumble and put the Exalt back in play, flip it again, and now I've got Hive Guardian again. So that's kind of nice. And you got Necromancer, who he's not really pulling anyone out of my discard pile as a finisher here, but something like a level 3 Shambler being popped out after you played the level 2 could be really nice. Limited benefit with the Necromancer in this deck, but it's not an awful card to have. There could be a situation where it's really useful. Not to mention you do get some life gain back potentially with it with the Hematophagic. So overall, I was like, this deck has a lot of minions, which pairs with the Biologist, so there's that strategy. You also have Bumble with all the spells, it's the Hive Guardian, but not Bumble. But Bumble also works with spells because he untaps each time you play one, and you can give stuff armor and attack. So you get armor initially, you get armor and attack there, and then you get attack and armor there as well, but it's just more. So tons of potential usage out of him. The Hive Guardian gets +5/+5 every time you play a spell. You got the Biologist with minions. Groma is Groma. Polymorpher is for potential, replacement there, maybe. So there's limited win conditions in the deck, but there's a lot there that you might be able to overwhelm them. If they can't get your Hive Guardian off, if you can flip it early and they can't get it off the board, they've also, if you get the Ascendant Biologist down there, they've got to remove the Biologist as well as defend against the Hive Guardian. So it's going to be tough for your opponent if you get this thing going in the right direction. My one match I played against the AI just to test the deck went as good as it could go, and it was still a battle. It was still a battle despite all that. So I don't know if the deck will be good enough or not, but we're going to test it and find out. So this leads me to my internal testing process, which I don't expect anyone else to do, but this is how I do it, just so you know, have an idea of what other people might be doing. Some people just jump in queue and play, and that's great. Some people specifically ask for people to play against for things. I do internal testing before I bring it to other players. So I have a list of old and current and new decks here. I got down to 217. That's where I stopped. Kind of random number to stop on, but I never thought I'd get this high, I guess, with decks maybe at the time. But I've deleted a lot of decks. As you can see, all the red ones have been deleted. So I delete decks out of here, though, and make room for new ones as well. I have an entire standings list of my decks, how they've performed. And then I have my current series I'm doing of decks in my format. I've got a little mini matrix for that. I got the standings for that. And then I've got my high-performing decks that have won something. So I test, and then I've got a percentage ranking where decks have to meet a certain level to stick around. So the blue and orange ones or yellow ones have all met the threshold at some point in time. But with me deleting decks out, because I go to the standings, I go down to the bottom, I look for this deck here. This deck will be the next one deleted out. So 3 wins from some decks that are still here are going to go away. So their win percentage might change. But eventually what I'll do is I'll have just my decks that I've, ranked up, so to speak. I'll have them all fight one another in some fashion somehow. I'll figure that out. But it's just my internal testing process. Like I said, I've done, of the decks listed here, I've done 1,240 matches, and there's probably been at least 50 decks I've deleted out of here, and that means they had a handful of matches as well, anywhere from 6 to 10 each. So that's several hundred more matches. I've probably done over 1,500 to 1,750 matches is what I would guess at this point. I started this almost 2 years ago now. So if we do it on the low end, it's basically averages like 2 matches a day, but I typically do them in bulk. I'll sit and do a bunch of matches. And I used to do it on TTS because you could load decks in, and that worked for the first 2 sets and some of set 3. Some set 3 had issues, and then they stopped. Whoever was updating it stopped updating it for the game, and you can't use it for anything anymore. So I was stuck for a while with not really being able to test, except for I had a second computer, and I would log on my son's account and my account, and I can play on 2 computers. Now you can do it through the phone, which is great, and I have my computer, so I can sit here, and it's a lot easier to do that way for me. But I still have to use 2 accounts. If they ever get to the point where you can do pass and play, if they ever implement that, then I could do single account testing on my own, which would be really nice. Because then I can go back to my old format where all decks can face all decks instead of just what my son's account has and what my account has. So I do have to keep my son's account with good decks, and I try to because I want him to play the game. So sometimes, I'll give him a deck that I really want, but I hope that he'll want it more and want to play with it. So but that's pretty much everything I can think of in regards to deck building, finding decks that might be good. I didn't mention when I find a deck that I'm not big on, I've got another sheet where I can move on from it. I put on there what I don't like about the deck, why I didn't build with it, and then I've got a list of those decks as well. So and that I got 2 lists: build and don't build, or don't use, and that is useful for me because I have so many decks, and it also allows me to track what I have used and tried to build. But it's a lot of upkeep. So when you're building decks, depending on how many you're building and whatnot, you've got to keep that stuff up to date. Otherwise, if it's no use to you if you don't keep it up to date. But I'm constantly on my computer when I'm not at work. So if I'm in the game, I normally have my collection manager pulled up. If I'm in an event, I've got stuff open all the time. I've got multiple monitors, so it works well for me. Sometimes I wish I had more monitors, but just don't have room. It would be also a lot to always be looking up like this. But so that's deck building by me. That's my process. That's my all my little intricacies that I do for decks and the deck testing. And for me, after I test a deck and it's not deleted, then I know I can use it in events. And sometimes I use them in events before them because I want to test a deck because I haven't gotten around to testing for whatever reason. I'm in an event and I'm like, I really want to play this deck. I think it's gonna be good, and I go play. Sometimes I do good, sometimes I don't. But I don't hold it against a deck if I do that. I only track my internal matches because it's hard to judge what your opponent's playing necessarily and track all of that. That would be really difficult for me to track unless they started allowing us to pull the information out of the system of who you played, the scores, their deck list, etc. If they let us pull that information out, then we can create a script that'll do that, and it'll calculate everything for us, and then you can get the data that I try to create. So that'd be interesting if they could make that happen. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode. It went a lot longer than I thought it was going to. I appreciate you guys watching and supporting the channel. I am going to try a trivia thing through YouTube. I don't know how it's going to work. There's a section for it now, so we'll see how that works, if it works at all. And we'll see how that works before I say. I'm going to try and give us some prizes to people. I'll figure out how it works, and we will figure out prizing. This is our 99th episode, so our next one, hopefully, we will have some fun with it and a lot of prizes to give out for the 100th episode. But thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe if you enjoy the content, and feel free to leave a comment if you've got anything to say. If you have, what's your process? Feel free to share with me. I'm always interested in what other people do, because like I said, I like to steal other people's ideas. So it's one of the best things you can do when playing these games. So thanks, and I'll see you guys later.